Most people who struggle with money are not struggling because they are careless. They are struggling because nobody ever gave them a clear, simple framework to follow. Not a complicated spreadsheet, not a finance degree, just a clear rule that tells you exactly what to do with your money the moment it arrives, every single month, without confusion, without guesswork, without stress. Welcome to Wealth Academy. My name is Dilawar, and here we take the money lessons that schools never taught us and turn them into stories that actually stay with you. Because facts are forgotten, but stories change the way you think. So sit back and let us begin. Today, we are talking about the simplest and most powerful budgeting rule in the world. A rule so clean and clear that once you hear it, you will wonder why nobody explained it to you sooner. It is called the 50-30-20 rule, and by the end of this video, you will know exactly how to use it, starting this month with whatever you earn right now. Let me start with a story. There was a young woman, let us call her Mariam. She was 26 years old, working a decent job in the city, earning enough to live comfortably. From the outside, her financial life looked perfectly fine, but privately, every month felt like navigating a maze with no map. She did not overspend dramatically. She was not someone who bought things recklessly, but somehow by the third week of every month she was already calculating how many days were left until her next salary. She had tried budgeting apps, too complicated to maintain consistently. She had tried tracking every expense, exhausting and eventually abandoned. She had tried setting vague savings goals, forgotten within weeks. She was not lazy, she was not irresponsible. She simply had no clear system, no rule, no framework that could survive contact with real life. Then, one evening, a friend mentioned something she had never heard of. 3 numbers, 50, 30, 20. And a simple rule that organized everything around them. Mariam listened for 10 minutes, and for the first time in years, money made sense. So what is the 50-30-20 rule? It was popularized by United States Senator and bankruptcy expert Elizabeth Warren in her book, All Your Worth, written not for wealthy investors, but for ordinary working people who simply wanted to stop feeling financially lost. The idea is beautifully simple. When your salary arrives, you divide it into 3 clear categories using 3 percentages that together add up to 100. 50% goes to needs, 30% goes to wants, and 20% goes to savings and debt repayment. That's it. 3 categories, 3 numbers, 1 clear rule. Let's go through each one properly so you understand not just what it is, but why it works. The first category, 50% for needs. Needs are the things your life genuinely cannot function without. Rent or mortgage, groceries, real groceries, not restaurant meals, utility bills, electricity, gas, water, transport to and from work, basic phone plan, essential medicines or medical costs, children's school fees if applicable. These are not non-negotiable expenses. They are the foundation of your functional life. And the rule says they should take no more than 50% of your take-home income. Now here's where a lot of people get their first honest surprise. When Mariam sat down and actually listed her genuine needs, not her wants, not her habits, just her actual non-negotiable expenses, she discovered that her needs were consuming almost 65% of her income. Not because she was living extravagantly, but because her rent was too high relative to what she earned. And this is one of the most powerful things the 50-30-20 rule does immediately. It tells you the truth. If your needs are consuming more than 50%, you do not have a spending problem, you have a structural problem. Your fixed costs are too high for your current income, and no amount of willpower or budgeting discipline will fix that. The structure itself needs to change. Maybe that means finding a more affordable place to live. Maybe it means finding ways to increase income. Maybe it means making some temporary adjustments. But at least now you can see the real problem clearly, instead of wondering vaguely every month why nothing ever works. The second category, 30% for wants. Wants are the things that make life enjoyable, meaningful, and human, but that your life could technically function without. Dining out, entertainment, streaming subscriptions, new clothes beyond basic necessity, hobbies, weekend outings, a nicer phone than the most basic model, travel. These are not shameful expenses. They are not things you need to eliminate or feel guilty about. They are simply the things that belong in this 30% container, chosen consciously and enjoyed fully within that boundary.
The 30% wants category is what makes the entire system sustainable, because a budget with no room for joy is not a budget, it's a punishment, and punishments get abandoned. Mariam looked at her wants and found something interesting. She was not spending wildly on any single thing, but she had accumulated a quiet collection of small wants that had never been examined together. A streaming service she barely used, a gym membership she had been meaning to cancel for 4 months, regular food delivery because cooking felt overwhelming after long workdays, weekend spending that happened automatically and socially without any real decision being made. None of these were wrong individually, but together they were consuming nearly 40% of her income, 10% more than the rule suggested. Just seeing that number in that context was enough. She didn't punish herself, she simply made a few conscious choices, cancelled 2 subscriptions she genuinely didn't miss, started meal prepping on Sundays, which she actually began to enjoy, and became slightly more intentional about weekend spending. Not dramatically restrictive, just aware. That awareness alone freed up money she didn't even realize was leaving. The third category, 20% for savings and debt repayment. This is the category that builds your future. 20% of everything you earn goes here, before life happens, before wants creep in, before the month gets away from you. This money is not what is left over, it is what is set aside first. This 20% has 2 potential jobs, depending on where you are financially. If you have debt, especially high-interest debt like credit cards or personal loans, a portion of this 20% goes toward paying that down aggressively, because high-interest debt is one of the most effective ways to destroy wealth silently. Every month you carry it, interest compounds against you. Paying it down is one of the highest return financial moves available to most people. Once high-interest debt is cleared, this 20% becomes your wealth-building engine. Emergency fund first, 3 to 6 months of expenses in an accessible account. Then investments, putting money into instruments that grow faster than inflation, building the kind of financial foundation that makes life feel fundamentally different over time. Mariam looked at her 20% and realized with some discomfort that she had been saving approximately 4%, not by choice, not by design, simply because whatever happened to be left at the end of the month is what got saved, and most months very little was left. The rule changed that immediately, not because her income changed, but because the sequence changed. 20% left her account on salary day, automatically, before she could see it or spend it, and what was left is what she had available for everything else. Within 3 months, she had more saved than in the previous 2 years combined. Now, let me address something honest. What if your income is low and 50-30-20 simply does not divide neatly into your reality right now? This is a real and fair question, and the answer is that the 50-30-20 rule is a framework, not a rigid law. The exact percentages matter less than the principle behind them. The principle is this: your money should have clear, intentional categories. Needs come first and should be kept as lean as possible. Wants are real and valid, but should be conscious and bounded. And savings, no matter how small, should be treated as non-negotiable, not optional. If you can only manage 50-30-10 right now, that 10% still matters enormously, because it's a habit, and habits compound just like money does. As your income grows, the habit is already there. The percentage simply increases. The person who saves 5% consistently for 10 years will always end up further ahead than the person who plans to save 30% someday, when things get easier, because someday almost never comes unless the habit is already built. Start where you are, use what you have, apply the principle honestly, and adjust the percentages as your situation.
Start where you are. Use what you have. Apply the principle honestly, and adjust the percentages as your situation allows. Let us return to Mariam 6 months after she started. She sat down with her notebook, the same notebook where she had first written those 3 numbers, and looked at where she was. Her needs had come down to 52% after she made one adjustment to her living situation, not dramatic, just intentional. Her wants were sitting at 30%, chosen consciously and genuinely enjoyed. And her savings were running at 18%, not the full 20 yet, but closer than she had ever been in her adult life. The number in her savings was real, growing, hers.
But more than the number, what had changed was how money felt. It no longer felt like a maze with no exit. It felt like a system she understood, one that had room for life, for enjoyment, for today, and still built something for tomorrow. She told her friend who had introduced her to the rule, "I did not need more money, I just needed to know where it was supposed to go." That is the 50-30-20 rule. Not a perfect formula, not a magic solution, but a clear, honest, human framework that gives your money direction and gives you back a sense of control that most people spend years looking for. 50% for the life you need, 30% for the life you enjoy, 20% for the life you are building. Write those 3 numbers down somewhere you will see them, and this salary day, before anything else happens, divide your money with intention. If this gave you the clarity you have been looking for, write in the comments 50-30-20 starts today. Like the video, subscribe to Wealth Academy, and hit the bell, because next time we go even deeper into the habits and systems that actually build lasting financial freedom.